Welcome to the Blah 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 Career Cast, focused on sharing the career stories of real people. I'm Jennifer Chenoweth, a wife, mom, Midwesterner, and career coach. This week's guest is Kelly Prchal. Kelly's career story examines the many facets of what a career in healthcare can look like. I'm excited for you to hear her story. Let's jump in.
I thought very young that I wanted to be a doctor. I knew I loved healthcare and I had doctors in the family and family friends who were doctors. And so that's what I knew about healthcare. I also did some intern work as a high school student and saw that nursing was a really different model from medicine and recognized that and thought, well, if I'm going to be pre-med, why would I study like biology or genetics? I want to get in the hospital right away. So I'll do nursing and then I'll transition to medicine and it'll make me a better doctor. I got to Georgetown and I started in my pre-med and nursing work and I loved it. I love healthcare. But I also knew my mom's a businesswoman and I knew that there's a business side to everything. And so I thought I would use some of those extra credits to take some business classes. And I pretty quickly recognized that that was more aligned with my core skill sets. And my sophomore year, I went to my counselor. I was like, I'm taking these, accounting and economics classes, and I love them. And I feel like this is more aligned with who I am. And honestly, it had not occurred to me that there was a business side to healthcare.
I think a lot of people could think like that too, that it's about the patient and that whole component of it. I think that's what brings a lot of people to healthcare is that idea of I want to help people.
Absolutely.
And you wanted to help people and that business stuff was pretty cool too.
Yeah, so I had my first existential crisis, realizing that I had my whole life planned through medical school and that probably wasn't actually the right path for me. And I was really lucky that at Georgetown, we had an undergraduate program in health systems administration. And I was able to transition over to that without too much trouble and graduated with my Bachelor of Science degree in health systems, and then came back here to the University of Minnesota for my Master of Healthcare Administration. I was able to do 1 year at the Carlson School of Business and 1 year at the School of Public Health. Graduating from my MHA, I had a choice. Do I try to go straight into a career position or apply for a fellowship, which is, if you're not in that MHA track, you might not realize, but there is an opportunity to work directly with senior leadership in a fellowship position. And so I ended up at North Memorial. They were wanting to put in a brand new breast center, changing the location and the facilities, the care model, and also the branding, learning about the development side and the paid naming rights and the branding opportunities. That was all new to me. And that was kind of the first time that I started to experience some pushback. I was a very young looking 23-year-old holding people accountable for, hitting deadlines and providing information and getting things done. And that all contributed to, significant learning experiences.
Kelly, for those that don't know, what's a fellowship? Because it's such a rare, like not every industry even has that. But knowing what you know now, how would you describe what a fellowship is to someone who's not familiar with it?
Yeah, I mean, an administrative fellowship. So it's really an opportunity to go to work for a hospital or healthcare system with senior leadership. And they're structured a little differently depending on the organization. Sometimes you work directly for the CEO, sometimes you do kind of a variety of experiences with different senior leaders, but typically 1 year, sometimes two, and pretty structured. But the ability to get involved at that higher executive level in some projects, typically not paid as well as if you were to go straight into the industry, but there's that give and take. You realize you might make less for that fellowship year, but that you're kind of set up for success once you come out of that extra training.
Well, and Kelly, the fact that you prioritized, I get to go into a situation, work on some really cool work, and learn some things like how hospital systems are run at a senior level. How do I launch something sort of from the ground up? How do I figure out naming rights? I mean, none of these are things that you probably talked about inside of your undergraduate or graduate
Right.
degree. But the idea that you are making conscious choices to prioritize one, the use of your skills and abilities, but also what can you learn from this experience is really a hallmark of how you've approached your career, wouldn't you say?
Always wanting to learn, like
Yeah.
lifelong learner. Those are certainly things that I would prioritize in every experience, and the next experience coming out of that fellowship as well. I could have stayed at that organization and been a clinic manager or something like that, but I wanted to learn something different beyond the hospital walls. And so I interviewed around town, and I met a woman at the University of Minnesota Physicians, so the academic practice,
Mhm.
large physician group practice at University of Minnesota. And she was the chief operating officer there, Patty Arnold. And I spent an hour with her, and I knew I wanted to work for her. I mean,
Mm.
she opened up very quickly and shared with me some of the priorities, and I could see her leadership style very quickly, that she was no nonsense, but at the same time, like, so smart in the way that she negotiated and built relationships with the physicians, which can be very challenging. That administration physician relationship is really a push pull, and can be really hard to get the right balance in healthcare administration. She and I just clicked, and she kind of said, I just need someone who can come and take things off my desk and run with them, and come
Mhm.
back if you need barriers removed, but we'll create a special projects role for you. And I didn't care what the title was. I didn't care what the cube looked like. Week 2, I think, I sat down in her office, and Patty said, well, we just signed this lease, and we have this property. We'd like to build a clinic over near the Guthrie in the Mill City area, but we need someone who can figure out what the community needs are. We have a physician leader that you can work with, but
Mhm.
you have to do it kind of soup to nuts. We have a lease and a budget, and go. And so I had never read an RFP, much
Mhm.
less written one. And we met with the community. We figured out the different specialties that were needed there and what the care model should be. We hired space planners and architects, and we built this little jewel of a clinic that was so unique in the way that it provided care. We thought very carefully about the way that the exam rooms were constructed. So, I mean, this was 2007. It was very common for the computer to be, on the opposite side of the patient, so the physician was turned away from the patient documenting. And so we said, how can we change that? How can we make the space conducive to that clinical relationship and discussion? And so we changed the orientation of where the computer was, so the patients didn't feel like they were getting the cold shoulder. And we just did some really cool things. We brought in art that changed a recorder, and really spoke to the community. And we opened on time and under budget. We won some awards for that space, and I love to continue to see how that clinic continues to grow and serve the community. It was an incredible first project. Speaks a lot to, my boss Patty, and her willingness to kind of let me take the reins on something like that.
Well, people with a growth mindset are actually pretty good at figuring things out. And when a job is a little bit ambiguous, it's exactly who you want in those spots is someone who
Yeah.
can jump in and figure it out. Kelly, you and I have never even talked about this, but I find there's three kinds of people in my world. There are launchers, which are the people who are like, give me an idea that doesn't exist and I'll figure it out and make it great. And then once it's sort of established, like I'd love to go and work on the next great idea, figure that out. The second typecast of person is sort of this fixer of like, let me come in and really just like fix a lot of things. Like I look for things that are broken or could be made even better. And then the third type of person is just generally like I call them the captain of like I will come in and keep your ship on course. Like
Mhm.
I will fix things as they come about. I will explore opportunities, but generally I'm a pretty steadfast, consistent person that will keep things running on course. What's kind of like your jam?
I think I like the ambiguity of that the launcher
Yeah.
type that you mentioned. A little bit of a tinkerer as
Yeah,
well
yeah.
in there. Maybe a combo, but that ambiguity and then making sense of it and creating systems and processes that can support moving forward, I think is really fun and exciting. I was
Yeah.
lucky enough after that special projects role to kind of move into a business development role at UMP. Um, and I got to work with all the department heads at the university, helping them figure out how to grow their business. And it was how to grow the clinical enterprise to support their academic work. So for some of those department heads, it was capital purchases and writing business plans for new pieces of capital equipment. For others, it was, creating relationships with other community groups and understanding how we could work together. Sometimes it was, hey, we have an excess of talent at on campus and we can actually sell physician services to other hospitals and entities. Working with the department heads and some of the key physicians and surgeons on campus also taught me a lot, gave me a little bit of a thicker skin. Oftentimes I was not always the decision maker, but certainly the messenger for some of those
Mhm.
decisions. And sometimes the answer was no. And so learning how to kind of navigate some of those relationships was a really good learning experience for me as well.
So how the heck did you end up at Target after?
I'd been at UMP for several years and was very involved in this very, high level academic care. And then Target called. They were looking for someone to come and help lead the clinics. And it was so interesting to me because I remember someone saying to me, wow, you're gonna leave this like high level of, care, academic medicine to go work for Target in the retail clinics. And but for me at that time, that was innovation. Retail clinics were just evolving and working their way into the market. And so working for a company that wanted to help improve access to quality basic care for Americans seemed incredibly progressive and exciting
Mhm.
for me. And I knew I'd get to learn a lot at Target because it's a wonderful Minnesota company. And I remember getting there and realizing, the dichotomy of having Target, which, all of these incredible processes and smart people, and knew that I'd get to learn a ton. And very quickly, I realized that, yeah, I was going to learn a lot from Target about marketing, but also I was going to be teaching Target marketing a lot about healthcare.
Target has a shiny, happy brand image. Except when you're sick, that's not really, that doesn't always equate. I'm sure they saw your background and said, wow, this person's done some really incredible work, has clearly figured out a lot of things from the ground up. Your launcher tendencies were a perfect fit for that role. And Target doesn't keep people in that clinic's role for long. So they threw you a curveball and said, do you want to be a buyer?
Yeah, they said if you're going to be a leader in healthcare at Target, you got to go learn this like merch retail stuff. It wasn't just like, hey, go be a buyer. There was a lengthy interview process, and I had to jump through a lot of hoops to prove that it was the right fit. But I was really grateful that they didn't put me on like something really unhealthy, like
Yeah.
maybe candy or soda. Like I was the bikes buyer, and so on bikes we had something related to fitness, but also helmets and accessories and brain health. And so I some correlation there, but again, a huge opportunity to just learn so
Yeah.
much.
Yeah, take what you had already known, use it in a new way, build, grow, and then you didn't stick around at Target after that. Because this is what I love about your career, Kelly, is you've done a lot of things, and that requires such bravery and confidence. You have this inherent knowing of like, gosh, I've learned a lot, and I have this new thing that I want to try over here, and you go and chase it. So tell me, what did you learn from Target, and then what was twinkling in your eye from a next steps
Yeah.
perspective?
I was super excited about the prospect of going back to healthcare at Target, but they sold the clinics. And so that pathway back to healthcare kind of vanished. And I was forced to kind of pivot again. The biggest thing that I learned in that role at Target, in that buyer role, was something about myself. And that is that um, it is a skill to be able to develop relationships and trust
Hmm.
with people. That is a skill. And I think until that role I didn't realize that, and I didn't recognize that I have that skill.
Hmm.
And that was incredibly important for me going forward, because it meant that I knew that I could have the confidence jumping into something totally different. I wanted to go back to healthcare. I transitioned into a consulting role at a big firm in Minneapolis, knowing that that was probably the quickest path back to healthcare for me. I knew when I got there that I probably didn't want to do that forever, a corporate consulting role like that. And after just a few years, in that corporate consulting role, I realized that it really wasn't what I wanted to do forever.
Yeah. What was the pivotal moment that you were like, I've gotta do something drastically different?
Yeah, I mean, I ultimately just realized that I didn't feel like I was fully serving my best self. I didn't have the ability to do my best work,
Mhm.
which I knew was building relationships and utilizing that. And I was really engrossed in very technical consulting work,
Yeah.
and I wanted to be out there selling it. And so I was presented with an opportunity to have kind of a soft landing to go work for myself, and
Mhm.
to consult independently through a business relationship that I had. I had a chance to have, my first big client, and to use that as my launching pad, and moving away from corporate America, from the guaranteed salary and the benefits and what all that looks like, and the safety and security of that, was really, really hard. But
Yeah.
I was so excited about what I could do and what I could make of myself, and how I could help, my clients and potential clients, and the business that I could build. I kind of felt like I had this entrepreneurial spirit brewing inside of me that
Yeah.
whole time. And I knew I wanted to pursue it.
You're hitting on some things that are really important in those transitions, which is financial security. And you had kind of a lineup of like, I've got a little bit of runway, I've got a client kind of lined up. This won't be devastating for my family.
Right.
And then the second thing you had is you have a spouse that you could get some benefits through. So it wasn't a,
Yeah, I was lucky to have our healthcare benefits through my husband. He works for a union. So that was,
yeah.
I mean, that part was secure. That made it a little bit of a softer landing for sure.
Yeah. And it's important to talk about that, I think, inside of like leaving corporate structures of what's
Mhm.
the security component that you need to have in place in order to make that landing or that transition not quite so scary. And boy, have you had a really exciting ride in your career sort of since then. And so walk me through kind of what's happened for you in the last, 5 or 6 years.
Yeah, so I started by, consulting for growth stage companies, primarily in healthcare, but a little bit of retail too, which was fun. And as I did that, I just really savored that ability to run my own day, run my own life, run my own priorities, starting to see these early stage emerging healthcare companies and the really cool things that people were doing, and helping to grow those companies. And so it was about 2.5-ish years ago, 3 years ago, that my partners at Engage Venture Partners and I came together and we started an early stage venture firm. We invest in early stage med tech. And there are four of us, and each of us has a different area of expertise that we bring to the table. And when we find something that all four of us are really excited about and want to invest in, we invest in that company and share our research with our network of investors who can join us in the investment. Mm-hmm. And that has just been a whole new world, the venture world for me, opening that up and learning. My partners are brilliant. And then the entrepreneurs we work with are brilliant. And I get to learn about the coolest, smartest things that people are doing to change. I mean, they're going to change the world. They're going to change the way healthcare is delivered. And, I wish we could invest in all of them, but of course we can't. And so, we spend a lot of time in research and diligence to find the opportunities that we really believe in enough to put our own capital, our own skin in the game. And through that work, I have met so many interesting, smart, capable people that it's really helped my consulting work as well. At the beginning of this year, through the venture world, was introduced to a company called Clean Waste Systems that's tangential to healthcare, and did a sales strategy project for Clean Waste. And in April of this year, stepped in as CEO of the company. And we make machines that treat medical waste using ozone. So today, most medical waste, most of it's incinerated, and most of it is plastic. Okay. And it's not good for the planet. It's incredibly expensive, operationally challenging. And so Clean Waste Systems has developed a machine and a technology to utilize ozone, which is just a variant of oxygen, to treat that medical waste in a safe, reliable, effective way, and greatly reduce the emissions, reduce the costs associated with this, and we're really disrupting the industry in a way that's so fun and exciting to be a part of.
You've really built a whole career at the intersection of healthcare and business. And if you look back, I mean, every single role that you have had has in some way sort of sat in that intersection, whether it was intentional or not, right?
Not always.
You are a beautiful example of sort of that reciprocity of, here are the skills and abilities that I've cultivated over my career. Here's what I can offer. And I'm so excited to learn about this thing that I can only, learn here. And I think when you can build a career that's that reciprocity of both, like, I have something to offer and I'm also super geeked out to learn, both parties are so stinking happy because
right.
Companies want people who are excited about their work. Like, that's kind of fun.
Sure.
And they want new energy and a new perspective. And so I think you're a beautiful example of that intersection and just continuing to grow.
I always think that, especially as women, we tend to look at opportunities and see if we tick all of the boxes. And I think it's really important to remember that even if you don't tick all of the boxes, like, you're smart, you can learn how to do certain skills. What's important is that growth mindset, that wanting to learn, the passion for the work, and also understanding that you bring your own unique perspective. Innovative companies want to hire someone who can bring a unique perspective and a different thought process to make sure that they're continuing to push the envelope and innovate and grow as an organization. And I just think, especially as women, we need to remember that you don't have to check every box, and you should still be applying for that job and fighting for it.
Yeah. I think on the other side of it, recruiters would say there are people way less qualified than you confidently applying for this job. So please throw your hat in the ring, because the job description, sometimes it's written for a unicorn, and that unicorn doesn't exist, but their hope is we can find somebody who checks a lot of boxes that we can have a really interesting conversation with to see if this is a
Yeah,
mutual fit. And those gaps we can figure out together.
exactly.
That's such a good message all around. Kelly, thank you so much for making time today to talk with me. I love any
Absolutely.
time I get with you, so I
Me
appreciate
too.
you so much. Kelly's story reminds us that we should embrace a growth mindset. We should emphasize learning and adaptability in our career. Her story underlines the importance of relationship building and seizing opportunities outside traditional paths. Thanks so much for taking the time to listen to this episode. More episodes are coming. Stay tuned.